Well, let's get into this first hour conversation. Today we speak to Tumelo Moreri, a Botswana-based womb medicine woman, helping mostly, women heal their inner wounds or inner womb pains, and to experience pleasure, confidence, and freedoms in their bodies, their lives, and leadership. She recently hosted what is currently known as a 7-part weekly email series on Setswana Indigenous Teachings and Practices for Pregnancy Loss. Well, this particular series was meant to archive and share age-old teachings and practices within the Setswana tradition of how a woman used to be cared for after being experienced a pregnancy loss, to be more specific, because such wisdom is being lost or forgotten and really not widely practiced in modern times. So we have Tumelo on the line. Welcome on the show, Tumelo.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Such a joy to be here with you.
It's such a joy to have this conversation with you. We have high expectations, as I mentioned in our earlier intro. We have a high expectation for women when it comes to pregnancy. In fact, we think the human body, especially the female body, is actually self-healing. We always come to that resort. They'll be fine. Women will be okay. We think they've got the mental capacity to deal with the distresses. In fact, I don't think as Black communities we really understand the mental strain that women even face during pregnancy. But even after a successful pregnancy, it feels like we also leave women to heal by themselves in modern times, where before there were rituals and cleansing ceremonies that used to take place that helped women to actually recover. It's even worse when it comes to pregnancy loss, because it feels like we don't know what to do, and then we resort also to Western ways of actually dealing with that particular moment of loss. How did you get into this? Because I think it's an important conversation for us to have, because it's one that I think we just shove aside and we just let women be, but we don't really centralize some of the key challenges that they have when it comes to carrying the baby itself, but most importantly, the experience of loss and birth.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Hi, Palesa, to you too.
Hi, Tumelo.
It's such a joy to be here, and thank you so much for that introduction. So I'm actually a womb healer, and I'm currently working on a body of work on womb healing for pregnancy loss. And this email series that you've mentioned, Benjamin, is actually supported and guided by an ebook that I've recently written on the same theme of Setswana Indigenous Teachings and Practices for Pregnancy Loss. And I'd say for me, it was like a natural direction to take, and just given my work and my path as a womb healer, right? However, when we look at our society today, there really isn't much conversation on pregnancy loss. There's a lot that, magazines will write about pregnancy, but there really isn't a real education on pregnancy as a rite of passage of womanhood, right? And as a result, there's also very little real education on what needs to happen should a loss occur on that journey of pregnancy, right? So pregnancy loss is largely a taboo subject in our society, right? Something that many women experience alone, and that they experience in silence, and that is shrouded in a lot of shame, right? So when we're talking about pregnancy loss, it can either be a miscarriage, it can be stillbirth, it can be a chosen loss, it can be an abortion, right? And when you look at just what's happening across our African continent, like in most of our African countries and across the world, really, abortion is illegal, right? And so for abortion especially, that adds another layer of it. Like all of pregnancy loss is a taboo, right? But when you look at chosen losses, like it's even a greater taboo subject, right? And so the intention of my ebook was really to avail this wisdom, right? So that we as women may know what needs to happen, so that we may have this as a resource of support to know how to support ourselves in our healing and in our recovery should loss happen, right? And it's specifically of the Setswana tradition because I'm a Motswana from Botswana. And so that's where I really had, I that was the only place I could begin, right? However, even though the ebook is on the Setswana tradition, it's also an invitation to all of us as women, to get curious about what's held within our own traditions, really to get curious about the practices in our own traditions of how to care for women who have experienced pregnancy loss. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is remarkable that you actually even thought about, those multiple dynamics, because at times when we speak about pregnancy loss, we don't think about the voluntary pregnancy loss, like you highlighted abortion. And at times when we think about abortion, we don't think that those women earn a way of healing from that particular loss themselves because they chose that particular loss. So I think that dynamic is very powerful that you've included that in your response there. We'll continue to speak a little bit about this around your research, around the women you spoke to, and collating all this information and some of your findings there, because it's a lot of lost wisdom. Some of these women probably you were speaking to probably have so many things that we've lost in our communities, but we'll deal with that after our break. We're speaking to Tumelo Moreri, who is a Botswana-based womb healer, and we'll continue to speak to her after this.
Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
The womb itself is such a special place, and I feel like even in a lot of African cultures, there are, hidden but also lost forms of understanding the womb through some of the, age-old practices that we've had in our various African cultures. And I was actually on TikTok this week, as usual, and I saw a particular woman speaking about the womb as a powerful thing, as a portal. Apparently, it has its own nervous system, and how it actually is a powerful part of a woman's body and a portal of sorts, not just to bring life in the world, but also to help the woman understand herself and understand the world. And those are some of the teachings that we've really lost. We're understanding a little bit more about this with Tumelo Moreri, a Botswana-based womb healer, and Moreri, who is a Botswana-based womb healer. And she's recently hosting a 7-part weekly email series on Setswana Indigenous Teachings and Practices for Pregnancy Loss. Tumelo, tell me about the womb itself, right? And some of the practices that you've learned through your Setswana Indigenous Teachings and learnings. Why is it important to heal the womb, especially in a ritual that is associated with one of its most powerful, needs, right? Which is pregnancy and the portal of giving life, or choosing not to give life, or maybe not being able to give life full term. So let's speak about the womb itself. Why are some of these teachings very important? And where do you also learn these indigenous teachings on the womb?
Yeah, thank you so much, Palesa. Oh my God, like the womb is such a remarkable being. I'll say she's a being.
That's powerful.
So there's, it's so interesting because in our world, really, we don't really get any real education on our bodies, how to engage with our bodies and even our wombs, right, as a result. And so my own journey and my own learnings have led me to understand the womb as an alive being, like she has a life of her own, right? And that person that you encountered on TikTok was very right in saying that the womb is a portal, just the mere fact that babies come through the womb, like, right? So we have different beliefs, but for me, the beliefs that I'm grounded in is such that we have the spirit or the soul of a child coming down, descending from the spiritual or the heavenly realms, right? Coming to occupy the body of the child, right? So this means that in our physical world, in our earth planet, we have wombs, we have women walking around these portals. It's like that doorways into the heavenly realms that facilitate that coming into the body of the spirit or the soul of a child. So the womb is such a powerful space that transcends the physical aspect of it, which is what we've only been taught about in our world. So for most of us growing up, we're just taught that it's the uterus, it's a body organ that is sitting in the lower parts of your body, but it's so much more than that. And it's so much more than just a creation. So it's a creation portal, and it's so much more than just for the creation of babies, right?
Yeah.
So for those who are aware of chakras, right? The 7 chakras, even though there are more in the body. So around the womb space, we have the sacral chakra, which governs matters of our emotions, matters of intimacy, matters of pleasure, right? And also matters of our sexuality extending to the root chakra, right? And so you'll find that the womb is responsible for so much more than just even birth, right? And yeah, and so it births not only babies, but it also births our very lives. Like when we're writing a book, we're birthing that through our womb space. When we are creating projects, when we're building organizations, we are birthing them through our womb space, right? And so coming back just to the bit on the womb being an alive being in her own right and having a life of her own. And then we consider pregnancy loss as like a painful experience that is actually a trauma, right? So given that the womb is alive, she's a being. When something as painful and traumatic as a pregnancy loss happens, it affects her. Like it's a pain that is felt by the womb herself. It's a trauma. It's a traumatic experience for the womb to have a death occur within her being, right?
Yeah.
And so the wisdom that the elders have shared with me is that in our Setswana tradition and in most indigenous traditions, like even going beyond our African continent, our elders used to have in place practices and protocols, right? That a woman would be supported through, that hold the appreciation of this being a big deal event in the life of the woman herself and in the life of the womb, right? So you might be able to imagine that, like, just experiencing pregnancy loss brings about so much, like it's a devastating experience. And so this woman is going to experience a lot of grief. It's a heartbreak. There's a lot of sadness. It might be a deeply disappointing experience because she was looking forward to birthing her child, right?
Yeah.
And so and that is just at the emotional level, right? Of facilitating healing for this woman at an emotional level to help her dissolve these emotions so that they don't impact other key areas of her life.
Yeah.
Right. And now just coming back to the womb space itself, So growing up, I used to know, even before I was a healer, right? I became a healer. I used to just know that there used to be cleanses that our elders used to do
Yeah.
for women who had experienced loss.
Okay,
you know?
I'm going to
And
stop
some
you
of these
there. I'm going to
practices-
stop you there because I do want to hear a little bit more about the actual practices a little later on. But
Yeah.
we need to go to our news break. I want to hear about the practices, the indigenous practices of the Botswana women
Yeah.
and people, and how they would go through this womb healing of a woman who's just experienced pregnancy loss. So we want to find out
Fascinating.
actually what really happens. We want to find out who comes together, what do they do, what is the experience of womb healing, and how it benefits the woman and how it benefits her life moving forward, but also how it heals the womb space and the womb herself, as you put it out there.
It's so interesting because
Very.
I think women are powerful at
Yes.
being within a being. How powerful are
It's
women?
incredible.
And you're always carrying this being or this sense of self within you. And that's such a powerful way to actually see it. But right now, let's quickly move on and get our latest sports. We'll come back to this fascinating conversation with our guest later.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. No time to waste. Be on the move with Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa.
Well, this is a very interesting conversation, and it's always interesting to find out some of the indigenous practices of us as African people within the spaces of our different traditions and our different cultural values. It's always good to know some of the practices that we can still use today to heal ourselves, to grow, and to bring together community in indigenous ways. We're speaking about womb healing, and in particular, a 7-part weekly series by Setswana womb healer Tumelo Moreri, who speaks about the teachings and practices of pregnancy loss through these womb healing practices. Thank you for staying with us, Tumelo. Now let's get to the crux of the matter, right? We chatted a little bit about what womb healing is and, its necessity in pregnancy loss. But what actually happens? I know you can't give us, all, step by step. I'm sure that would take forever because these are things that take place, I think, over a couple of hours or days even perhaps. So give us a breakdown of what happens when a woman loses a baby, whether, knowingly or unknowingly. What happens? What exactly is the womb healing practice of pregnancy loss amongst the indigenous Tswana people?
Okay, thank you, Palesa. So the womb healing aspect is actually part of a broader protocol that is done for a woman, right?
Okay.
So in the Setswana tradition, a woman who had experienced pregnancy loss, we're using past tense because we don't practice these as much as we used to in olden days, right?
Yeah.
So in the Setswana tradition, a woman who had experienced pregnancy loss was believed to need a period of healing and recovery, right? And she would go into a period of confinement just like a woman who had given birth to a live baby. So in my language, we call it butsetsi, right? That period of confinement. And she would be in confinement for a minimum of 3 months. And this could also be extended to 6 months. And so you've probably
And by
heard
confinement,
of,
you mean like solitary confinement? That could mean different things because it could
Right.
feel like you're shunning the woman from their community. What happens in that space of confinement?
So by confinement, we mean, another term for it is like being in a secluded space, like a nesting space
Okay.
for her postpartum care and recovery, right? So, yeah. So this, which she would be supported through is, it's really a postpartum care period that is very similar to that which a woman who has given birth to a live baby would also be supported through, right? So elders of olden times were quite strict, right? And so the confinement was not because they believed something was wrong with the mother. It was really to protect her from the energies of the community. And where there was a baby, it was also to protect the baby. from the energies of the community, right? And this is something that I believe is there, in various cultures around just on our African continent, right? Mm-hmm. And so, one, it is that. So she would go into that postpartum care period, right? Whose minimum duration was 3 months, and it could be extended to 6 months because it was believed she needed a period of healing and recovery. Yeah. And this was done regardless of how far along she might have been in the pregnancy. So whether she had been a few days into her pregnancy, whether she had been a few weeks or a few months, for our elders, it didn't matter. For them, my understanding is that for them, they considered conception to be the beginning of her motherhood journey. And there was a respect and an honoring and a reverence around this experience of loss and appreciation that she has lost a baby. Hence, they even call it a baby. It's not like a fetus. It's not conception matter, And so it was during this period of confinement, which we call botsetsi in Setswana. You might have a word for it in your language, right? It was during this period where elders were taking care of her that these practices would be facilitated for her. Mm-hmm. One of those care practices was womb healing, right? Key is they would facilitate like rituals, cleansing rituals for her womb So elders of olden times believe that like when a loss happened, it indicated that there might have been some debris in the womb space that might have resulted in the loss. So nobody could ever really know what had caused the loss, right? And so for them, then they would facilitate these cleanses with the intention to, purify the womb space, cleanse the womb space of whatever it is really, that might have resulted in the loss. And second, because really she was treated like a mother who had just birthed, there was an appreciation of pregnancy loss being a birth process, right? And so part of her care would be lying on her belly, like as she would be in confinement in her bedroom or in that secluded space, like her default sitting position was lying on her belly. So to facilitate a return to position of her womb and of the organs that would have like moved from the original position during pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
She would also receive,
Yeah, we're running out of time, and there's so many things I feel like we should go to your ebook to actually hear them, because you are citing them with such great description, and I feel like they're more elaborate in how they should be observed. Where should we go to actually get hold of the ebook, and where can people go to actually find out more about some of the work that you do?
Okay. I'm mostly active on Instagram. My handle is at Tumelo Moreri. And I also have a website, tumelomoreri.com. This is where people can get a copy of the ebook that shares all this wisdom in detail, right?
Sure.
So the ebook is at tumelomoreri.com/resources. That's where you will get it. And available on DM and email for those who might have any further questions or any thoughts that they'd love to share with me. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm seeing a very beautiful book that you have there on our live stream, 1,000 Splendid Suns. And that is by Khaled Husseini. I love that book, actually. I'm like, she's a great reader as well. She's got good taste in literature. But thank you so much for joining us. What's the name of the book again?
Of my ebook?
Yes, the name of your book.
Oh, it's Setswana Indigenous Teachings and Practices for Pregnancy Loss.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a nice, lovely conversation with you. Thank you for taking your time as well, for just relaying some of these descriptions and important steps, because we need to remind ourselves of what we've lost. That is Tumelo Moreri, who is a Botswana-based womb healer. Let's take a break. We'll be back.